Okay, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Morning Scone, presented by Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic. Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com. Restored Motions, RestoredMotions.com, and ProCharge. Restored Motion. EV, ProChargeEV.com. All right, y'all. What is good? Good peeps. LSU begins prep for Mississippi State. Brian Kelly met with reporters on Monday. It's interesting, certainly. Should kind of turn the page to LSU Mississippi State. Tigers are a 10-point road favorite in that game. I am not a believer in Zach Arnett as a head coach. I think State has a horribly unenviable task of very suddenly trying to replace Mike Leach, who was so specific in his style and what he did, and obviously the air raid. And when you try to change from that, there's usually pretty naturally growing pains. The thing that LSU struggles with right now that we all know is defending the pass, and there ain't no Mike Leach there to try to sling it around. Will Rodgers had 17 pass attempts last week in an overtime win against Arizona. Will Rodgers had 17 pass attempts. I mean, they have gone from spread it out and chuck it around to run the ball, play defense. So I like the matchup for LSU. So 11 a.m. and all that, I get it. Brian Kelly did talk. I actually asked him specifically because he referenced when he was, typically in this Monday press conferences, the coach will open with like an opening statement, recap the week before, kind of give you a thumbnail preview of the team you're going to play. And Brian Kelly mentioned several times the 11 a.m. kick. And so I kind of followed up. I was like, look, I mean, last year you lost to Tennessee. You had an ugly game against Arkansas at 11 a.m. Are you going to do anything differently? And he kind of talked about, well, you got to do different things to try to get the team firing early. So they're going to team breakfast at 7:20. They got an hour bus ride. I think they usually stay in Pearl, if I'm not mistaken, then bus to Starkville. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what Les did for all those years, and I would assume they'd just continue that. They got to play at 11 a.m. too. So while LSU kind of had a breather this past week, State played an overtime game against Arizona. So let's see. Let's see how the Tigers do. And then, of course, if you're watching Monday Night Football, what a game. Jets and Bills. Aaron Rodgers, first offensive series of the year. Looks like he's got a torn Achilles. They said it's an Achilles injury. You could see it when they slow-mo and spot shattered it like it pops. It's disgusting to watch, so I would not recommend it if you've got a weak stomach. But Zach Wilson came in, and Josh Allen turned the ball over 4 times. 3 picks and a fumble, opened the door. The Jets took a lead. The Bills forced overtime on a field goal that doinked off the upright and went in to force overtime. And then Bills got the ball first, and the Jets get a stop, force a punt, and Xavier Gipson, a rookie, housed the punt, walk off to win it. So what a night, man. The NFL is undefeated, y'all. It is why our nation has a love affair with the NFL. It just always seems to deliver. Okay, let's say some good morning, see what y'all got. Michael Cook, good morning. Trey Fisher, good morning. Jason Horn, good morning. Do the Jets call the Saints about Jameis Winston? So, Jason, that's a good question. The Jets need to be considering all options. I know, there were a lot of people last night pointing out that the Jets should call Tom Brady, and they should absolutely call Tom Brady. 100% should call him. Now, I don't know that Tom Brady, having spent his whole career with the Patriots, would go play for the Jets. That would be akin to Brett Favre going to play for the Vikings, which happened, but I don't know that we would see that. But Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, who's in a broadcast booth but could come out of retirement certainly. What quarterbacks around the league might be available? Yes, I think Jameis has to be one of those considerations. But then I think if you're the Jets, you look and you say, is Jameis a better option than Zach Wilson? You know, Zach Wilson was the guy you used the second overall pick on a couple of years ago. Do you commit to Zach Wilson, saying, all right, we're going to give you a go? Let's see how much you've grown up under Aaron Rodgers. So, see. Darren Bone, good morning, Scone. Does Denver Harris get more chances? Yeah, Darren, I'm sure he will, man. You know, I don't know if y'all heard Brian Kelly yesterday, but it was the second to last question at the press conference. Someone asked him about Denver Harris specifically, and finally, Brian Kelly said on the record the thing that I've been telling y'all for months, which is the knock, if you want to call it that, on Denver Harris is great athlete, but has always allowed his athleticism to take over his play man coverage. Well, you got to learn to play zone and other defensive concepts, and until he learns how to do that, they can't put him on the field. So Brian Kelly said that point blank yesterday in his press conference. So sometimes y'all know when I'm telling you the story without telling you the story. Anyway. So will he get more chances? Yeah, as he gets more comfortable and, you know, learns his responsibilities more. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who on the team right now has completely put a stranglehold on a cornerback job? I mean, I think everybody should get opportunities, right? There it is. Joey Vincent, what's up? Trivia Carter, Spurge, Larry Garner, Chris P, good morning. Baby Bobby, good morning. State game makes me miss an old flame. Cody Kibido, talk about some bad luck for Rodgers and the Jets, if the prognosis is true. Yeah, man. I mean, all that hype, all the offseason talk about Rodgers and the Jets, and then the first freaking series of the game, he's done for the year. Whew. Jesse Brown, good morning. Brian Wynn, Brad David, it was nice seeing you on Preston Guy's show last night. It was interesting how you said Zach Arnett interviewed for the LSU DC job. It did not go well. I never knew he was considered for DC. Yeah, so when thanks for watching, Brad. If you missed that, I did was on with Preston Guy and Zach Nagy on Tiger Bait last night. So Arnett interviewed for the job. I'm trying to remember if it was when Pelini. So Aranda obviously took the Baylor job, and Orgeron hired Pelini. Pelini was gone after 1 year, and they brought in Durante Jones. I'm trying to remember which year they interviewed Arnett. If it was the year they hired Pelini or the year they hired Durante. Now, I wanted to say it was the year they hired Pelini, but I know Orgeron hired Pelini without interviewing him, based on basically Pete Carroll's recommendation. Anyway. But one of those 2 years they interviewed Zach Arnett, and I was just told point blank, like, the interview did not go well, which is why he didn't get the job. Let's see, Jesse Brown, good morning. Brian Wynn, will John Emery get carries this weekend? I think so, yeah. John Emery's eligible, and I would certainly think that he would be in the game, yes. Brant, good morning. Going to the Guns N' Roses concert tonight. Okay. Got a feeling I'm going to be burning PTO tomorrow. So I am actually going to the GNR show in Houston in a few weeks, and I'm very excited about it. Buddy of mine who lives in Austin, like your best friend, best man at my wedding also. He lives in Austin. We're going to meet in Houston and go to that show on that Thursday night. So I'll miss AFR that day. But then I'll sleep in Houston, wake up, drive back Friday morning and do my show Friday. Whatever, it's 27th, 28th, like that. Chocolate Milk, good morning. Weston Weaver, Hunter Broadhead, good morning. Bengal Tiger, Ravens at Bengals prediction. I do like Cincinnati to bounce back at home. They were on the road this week. Burrow had missed basically the entire offseason. Cleveland has had Cincinnati's number for some odd reason. That didn't really surprise me. That actually on Jimmy Ott's Football Sunday, there were like 3 handicappers that all gave Cleveland in that game. But I do think the Bengals bounce back and win at home. Reed Rule, good morning. Rodgers was the main story, but no one's talking about Josh Allen with 4 turnovers. The Bills in more trouble than everyone thinks. I don't think so, Reed. I think that was a weird one-off, and the Jets' defense is really good. 3 picks to the same guy and the fumble. It was a bizarre game, no doubt. But everyone should be talking about Rodgers because the Jets had legit Super Bowl aspirations. Without Rodgers, you can just eliminate them. So Josh Allen's still upright. You know what I mean? So I do you're not wrong. That was a terrible night for Josh Allen, but I'm not worried about Josh Allen. There's a large enough sample size to suggest one game in the season opener on the road, emotional night, 9/11, all things considered. That's the exception, not the rule. Jason Walker, good morning. Cajun Country, good morning. I have played on turf, Astro Play, and real grass. I do have to say real grass is the best. Any thoughts? I mean, I don't have a strong opinion on it. I mean, I played a game on AstroTurf at Tad Gormley Stadium in high school playoffs. That's the old AstroTurf, right? Concrete under turf. I've been on field turf many times. Obviously, we've all played on grass. Players seem to like grass. For the longest time, there was no, and I know they did studies on this. There was no real material noticeable difference in things like injuries and knees and ankles and stuff like that on turf as opposed to grass. And then a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, that number shot way up. And so people looked at it as oh, see, grass is safer. Maybe it is, but that was also a weird one-off after a 10-year study. So I don't have a real thought on it, man. I know real grass has more maintenance cost, right, to maintain a real grass field. But at this level, that shouldn't be a problem. I mean, if that's what's going to keep people safer, go for it. But then if you think about Sunday Night Football with the Giants and the Cowboys and that deluge, if they were playing on grass, the thing would have been a quagmire. It might not have been playable the rest of the year, And they had a game there the next night. So I just think there's a lot of different things you weigh. Please smash that like button if you would on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, Facebook. Please like the page, share the post. Brand Roban, how much of a leash do you give coaches when they keep saying, we just weren't prepared, that's on me, blah, blah. Eventually that gets old, right? Yeah, I understand it, Brandon, that a coach never wants to deflect blame. They're not going to say, they're not going to go into a press conference and say, well, our quarterback stinks and throws the wrong team and our offensive line can't block. Of course they're going to own it because they're speaking to their team. So I think every coach goes into a press conference with a certain agenda. Are you talking to your team? Are you trying to get a message to fans? What do you want out there? What don't you want out there? I think if a coach is truly prepared and calculated, then everything he says is with intention. And I think that's the truth. Brian Kelly, smart guy. Jeff G, top 3 quarterbacks struggled in week 1. I think the lack of real reps in the offseason. Could be. It very well could be. Bailey C, look at tackling early in the season, both the college and pro level. Nobody tackles in practice anymore. You wonder why tackling's bad? Nobody practices tackling anymore. I went out to every LSU practice, and the only time we ever really saw them tackle was when they went 11 on 11 a couple times and in the scrimmage. Let's see, Bailey. We look at A&M losing to Miami and say that game is winnable. I'm sure they're saying the same about us because we fell apart against FSU. Totally true. 100% true. Fact. No doubt. Completely agree. So when you get to that point, then the question becomes, okay, well, of the noticeable issues both teams had, which are correctable, especially relative to the opponent, the situation. So look at the A&M game specifically. Well, number one, the game's in Baton Rouge. I feel really good about that. Number two, A&M's defensive line was supposed to be sort of the stalwart of their team. These big 5-star dudes, Shamar Stewart and all them guys, Shamar Turner. And Miami had no problem whatsoever moving the ball against them. Like, that's a big concern if you're A&M. So I look at a game in Baton Rouge with a fifth-year senior quarterback, just like Miami had with Tyler Van Dyke, spreading the ball around all their weapons, and they put up darn near half 100 against A&M. And there was nothing fluky about it. Meanwhile, A&M had two short field scores in that game. When I look at the LSU game, LSU led the game in half. LSU led the game in half by 3 and probably maybe should have been up by 17. You had 2 possessions inside the 10 where you came away with no points. That game should have been out of hand early in LSU's favor, but they didn't convert. Credit Florida State, and it was still a 1-score game going in the fourth quarter. Receiver falls down, throw a pick, and then it snowballed on you in the fourth quarter. Like, the whole game wasn't dominated by Florida State. LSU put up 300 yards in the first half. They faced some adversity late, and it unraveled on them. It's a big difference from that and what I watched with the Texas A&M game. Because but for a muff punt by Miami and a block punt by A&M, which credit them for the block punt, that thing gets out of hand in favor of Miami. Ed Check, good morning. Bubba Smith, good morning. Lowell Cormier, good morning. 38 degrees in North Dakota. Wow. Eric Hart, good morning. Big W last night for the SJS third grade girls basketball team against St. George, 30-9. All right, go Cougars. Go Cougs. Jeff McKippin, Kelly Gross, Wes Dufresne, good morning. Mark Vitanovich, Jason Brownlee was the star of HBO Hard Knocks for the Jets, Southern Miss guy. Okay. Let's see. I think Jaden Daniels still in the mix for the Heisman. That being said, who's your early Heisman frontrunner? Well, the early Heisman frontrunner has got to be Shedeur Sanders. I don't know that he'll maintain that pace, but you throw for 500 yards in week 1, you get a road win against a ranked opponent. You followed up with another big game week 2. Shedeur Sanders got to be that guy right now. Him, Caleb Williams. Trey Potan, good morning. Let's see, what are your thoughts on Derek Carr's first start with the Saints? Yeah, look, he threw for 300 yards, most yards passing by Saints quarterback since Drew in 2020. I think he would certainly like to have the throwback on the turnover for the interception for a half. You got to be better in the red zone. You put up 16 points. So you throw for 300 yards, which is great, but you put up 16 points. So, you've got to convert drives into touchdowns, obviously. Christian Myers, good morning. You think the Jets can call from Winston? Second person that's asked that already today. I think if you're the Jets, you literally make a call considering every option. What would it take to get Trey Lance from the Cowboys? Jameis Winston from the Saints? Gardner Minshew? I think you call Tom Brady. I think you call Matt Ryan. You consider every single option available. Because you've got Zach Wilson and then some kid on the practice squad. So you've got to have somebody with some competency who's played a lot of quarterback in the NFL. That's a roster that's capable of, playoff and Super Bowl, and Rodgers was supposed to be the missing piece. So should they call for Jameis? Absolutely. But he's not the only call they make or the first call they should make. But should they make that call? Absolutely. Craig Dugas, it'd be funny if Tom Brady takes a 1-year contract for the Jets. Yeah, I think from a football perspective, it's not a bad idea. How how in-game shape is Brady, don't know. I think he could get his body there quickly. Still look good. I mean, you saw him the Patriots game the other day, but he could very easily step in there and make that team better, of course. I've heard some national people mention this, like, that there's no way Tom Brady would go play for the Jets, which, okay. I mean, who am I to judge anybody for any decision they make? If he's so loyal to New England that he don't want to go play for the Jets, okay. But if he wants a chance to go win a Super Bowl with a third team, I mean, he would have that chance with the Jets. Trey Marceau, good morning. Thad Landry, good morning. Y'all please smash that like button if you would. Let's see. Cliff Nelson, good morning. Tiger Diver. Let's see. Brant, saw a college football comedy skit. Clearly showed this. Another media outlets peg BK, always blaming the players' thoughts. So, Brant, I didn't see the skit you're talking about. So, again, it's hard to make a blanket comment without the context of what it was. What I will say, hold on, I'll be right back. I'll finish that thought. Drew's back next week. I'll be right back. Shout out to Brock, y'all. Banners Orthopedic Clinic, Hudco Roofing, need an orthopedist, go to Brock. Need a roof, call Hudco. So anyway, Brant, point being there, it is always possible to compile a series of 5 to 7 second clips without context to have it say whatever you want it to say. I could also similarly get a compilation of Brian Kelly saying, put it on me. As coaches, we have to be better. Like little 2-3 second clips over and over and over again that would paint it as Brian Kelly being the most team-centric, player-friendly coach ever. So again, not knowing what you're talking about specifically, not having seen it, it's hard to comment completely. But believe me, as someone who produces an inordinate amount of content every single day and has for years, I know very much what it's like to have snippets of things I've said taken out of context. Happens often. But you just roll with it. Scott Fontenot, go Tigers, go Drew. Bayou Bengals will continue to improve this week. Taking the Cowbells home Saturday. Bengal Tiger, will Colorado lack of depth be a problem as season progresses? Yes. I mean, look, Bengal Tiger, to be very clear, I think Colorado is I think it would be an amazing year if they get to 7-5, which, considering people peg their win total at 3.5, that's massive. But in the context of could they be a playoff team, I don't think so. Like they play Colorado State this week, they're going to win it. It's very smart that game day and big noon kickoff are going back to Colorado. They'll both be at Colorado this week, even though it's Colorado State, because next week they go to Oregon. And they'll probably lose at Oregon. They could win, but they'll probably lose at Oregon. And then they're home against USC. So it's possible that they start 3-0 and then lose their next two, and some of the shine wears off. So, you ride that wave while it's still building, and it's still building. But yes, I mean, Bengal Tiger, I think the biggest problem Colorado has on the line of scrimmage, on both lines of scrimmage. I think they struggle to run the ball and struggle to stop the run. So physical teams at the point of attack are really going to give them trouble. I mean, Shedeur Sanders was under duress the whole day against Nebraska, and they couldn't run the football. But eventually, their athletes broke through. Leon Williams, let's see, TC, do you take Quincy Williams and a pick for Jameis? He looked great last night. I'm sorry. You're talking about Quinn and Williams from the Jets? Oh, brother. If you're talking about Quinn and Williams from the Jets, would I take Quinn and Williams and a pick for Jameis? In a heartbeat. However, if Joe Douglas, the GM of the Jets, traded Quinn and Williams and a pick for Jameis Winston, he should be fired immediately and committed to a mental institution. I mean, Quinn and Williams is okay. His brother, okay, dude. I was about to say, like, if you're talking about Quinn and Williams, brother, whoo, oh man, like, yes, in a millisecond, okay. Well, here's what I would say. If I could get so first of all, I don't think that would happen at all. So just to be clear, I don't think that would happen. If you could get a starter or a starting caliber player for Jameis Winston, you do that in a millisecond. I also don't think that would happen at all. So, like, I think most, if you were going to do a trade like that, very likely what would happen is you would end up getting, you get draft compensation. So, So just here's a for instance. When the Saints traded Darren Sproles to the Eagles, they traded him for a 5th round pick. Darren Sproles was a really good player, a starting caliber player, had a lot of treads still left on the tires. They got a 5th round pick for him. You're not getting a starter and a pick for Jameis. I think you could get a draft pick for Jameis. You know, maybe a 4th or 5th round pick, but a starting caliber player, I don't like. The thing that I always say, TC, is if you put the shoe on the other foot. Okay, like most of the time, whenever we think about trades, we think of it in context of what do we want, but try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. If you're the Jets, would you give up a starting linebacker and a draft pick for Jameis Winston, who hasn't played in 3 years? I mean, no, I wouldn't. Like, would you give up Demario Davis and a pick for Baker Mayfield? No, you wouldn't. So, anyway. All right, last one. Brandon Tilley, good morning. Since Rodgers likely done, do we see him again? Done for the season, do we see him again? Or does he go to the Vikings and get beat by the Saints to the NFC Championship game next year? Well done. Henry Gordon Bennett, morning Matt. You and T-Bob should take a trip to Michelli to get T-Bob's PSI measured on his pee stream. The ultimate ad saying they can measure anything. So that is a reference to Whiskey and Wine, where T-Bob apparently takes a lot of pride in having a very forceful stream. He says he works out those muscles to be able to. Anyway, okay. Charlie Cavell, good morning. Bill Caffey, Brady can't play as part owner of the Raiders, right? So my understanding, Bill, is that isn't like done. Like, I need to look up the particulars, but I don't know that has been like. My understanding is that had not yet been like signed, sealed, delivered, done. So it's a good question. That is like the most valid question. I also don't think Tom Brady would come out of retirement to play for the Jets. But anyway, okay, it's 8:00. I got to go. Got to get Drew to school. Thanks so much for watching. As always, shout out to Brock and Hudco. You need an orthopedist? Go to Brock, they're the best. Need a roof? Call Hudco. HudcoRoofing.com. LSU Daily is live, so please, on your favorite podcast app, just type in LSU Daily. Subscribe. Would love you forever for it. And AFR 3. Deuces.